My name's Alex Fullamore. I'm Marketing Communications Manager with the Farming Community Network. This video is part of a project with the Nuffield Farming Scholarships Trust and Focused Farmers, supported by the Garfield Weston Foundation to support farmers' business and personal resilience. And I'm joined by Bill Young, Chief Executive of the Addington Fund. As part of this project, we're interviewing Nuffield scholars around all things farming. So thanks very much for your time, Bill. First question, perhaps if you could introduce yourself, tell us a bit about your Nuffield Scholarship and the year that you did it, and then some of the work that you do in the farming industry.
Yep. Hi, I'm Bill Young. I'm a 2001 Nuffield Scholar, which I conducted on grain trading, having gone into the grain trade straight after leaving Harper Adams in 1983. I then became sales manager of Midlandshire's farmers before it got lost in Countrywide. I worked in quality assurance for 20 years, fronting the two big certification bodies in UK agriculture. And then for the last 3 years, I've been chief executive of the Addington Fund, where I look upon it as putting back into farming because it's looked after me very, very well over the years. And we've got 5 main aims, which are disaster relief, retirement homes, affordable homes, helping farm workers, and bringing young entrants into agriculture.
Excellent. And perhaps you could just touch a little bit more on your Nuffield Scholarship. Could you tell us a bit more about the work that you did while you were a Nuffield Scholar?
Yeah, well, as I say, when I came out of Harper in 1983, I went straight into the grain trade. And quite frankly, I was pretty appalled at the way the industry conducted itself at the time. I wanted to travel around the world and just see how other countries did it and see if they did it any better than us. I applied in 1999, got it in 2001. I literally did around the world circuit, 22 different flights, and spent time in Europe, Australia, America, Canada, and Europe as well. So really enjoyed it, and it's probably one of the best things I've ever done for my own personal development. And not only that, it's just such a great network with so many great, forthright, independent people who can bounce ideas off. And they're not shy in coming forward if they tell you if they think you're talking rubbish as well, which is a good way of bringing you back down to earth.
Fantastic, thanks, Bill. So one of the focuses of the interview today, we're thinking about planning for the future, succession planning, potentially thinking about retirement. Why is these sorts of topics really important, especially right now in January 2021?
Well, it's always been important for the Addington Fund because when we started 20 years ago, and it's our 20th anniversary this year, we've quite rightly, during our foot and mouth work, found out there were quite a few farmers who were actually trapped on their farms and were never going to be able to afford to retire because they were tenants, never saved up enough money to buy a house. So the only way they left that farm was in their coffins, quite frankly. And on the back of that, we started to do a plan of retirement homes. And we've got just over 50 now dotted around the countryside where we sort of buy homes to order for farmers who cannot farm, don't want to farm, and want to retire particularly, and have set them up in that way, really. And we do shared equity homes as well, which is a good way of doing it as well. And they prove to be very, very good tenants. But what's really sharpened our focus in the last 6 or 8 months is the Agricultural Bill 2020, which went through in November. And there is, for the first time ever in British agriculture, there's a provision for farmers to be able to retire, whereby they can apply in 2022 and draw down a lump sum on their BPS payments between then and 2028. And that will give some farmers, for the first time, a wad of cash and whatever they make from their farm sale. And potentially some will have a good dollop towards a retirement home. And I genuinely believe, I won't say the floodgates are going to open, but I think there's going to be quite a few farmers who will take up that offer and look to retire, which is good in a way because they won't be trapped on their farm, but it's good in another way, and it's going to give young entrants a great opportunity. And I'm a firm believer of young entrants coming into farming, and I think they bring something to the industry that other farmers don't bring.
Fantastic, thank you. And when we're thinking about the present state of the industry, what you've just alluded to there in relation to retirement sounds very positive. What are some of the big challenges that you think the industry is facing at the moment, and potentially that you've personally experienced?
Well, obviously Brexit's the big conundrum, isn't it? Nobody knew what was going to happen to Brexit. As it's happened so far, commodity price-wise, it's been good. Wheat has gone over £200 a tonne. Fat lambs are fetching 120 quid, and who'd have thought that when we first started talking about it? But the biggest problem facing agriculture overall is uncertainty. Agriculture at the best of times uncertain because you don't know what the weather's going to do, you don't know what commodity prices are going to do. But when you throw in political uncertainty into it, it makes it even worse. And you have to be a fairly resilient character, I think, to farm and to carry on in that way. I think gone are the days now where farmers can just put crops in and expect to sell them willy-nilly for a profit. They've got to think very, very carefully about their marketing strategies, try things that other people haven't done, and look to diversify as well. Although I do think diversification, in the same way as sustainability, is probably overdone as buzzwords. So we'll see what happens. But it's interesting times. But also, I believe times for opportunity, and there will be some fantastic opportunities for people in the next few years. And I do believe that the decade we're just gone into now is going to be seen as a decade of serious change in agriculture and a serious opportunity as well.
Thank you. And you mentioned the need to be resilient there. How do you personally stay resilient and optimistic in the work that you do?
Well, I mentioned diversification, sustainability, and I almost feel resilience now is becoming overused in the same way that those two words are overused. But I'm always a glass half full person, and I always think there is always good around the corner, and I think if you're the right ilk, you can make that happen. But you have to do that. You have to think positively. You have to have positive influence around you too, and that's very important as well. But the population's growing. People will always need food, and when people get hungry, they don't care where that comes from as well. But at the moment, we've got to try and tap into the elite market, the people who pay the premiums, and we're very, very good. We're a marketing nation. We're very, very good at tapping into niche markets, and that's what we've got to do. When you commoditize food, it's a bad thing, in my opinion. And you've got to always look to add value to something.
Excellent. And you mentioned their cause for optimism, which is great. If there's anyone watching this who is feeling uncertain at the moment or anxious for the future, what might you want to say to that sort of person?
I always think the first place to start is look what you've got, not what you haven't got. And a lot of farmers are sat on a great deal of asset. Sometimes they're sat on a great deal of debt as well. But look at what they've got around them. They often live in nice houses. They've got countryside at hand, and they're actually in charge of their own destiny. And there's far worse jobs out there. So that is the first starting point. The other thing is surround yourself and take advice from people who can help you. I think one thing about Nuffield is we've all got mentors. Whether we knew they were mentors in the first place or they become mentors by stealth, I'm not sure. But I'd always go out, talk, socialize, meet people, and that is the best way to focus your mindset and become more positive, I think.
And you mentioned the value of mentors, which is great. Are there any other sort of tips or suggestions you'd have for people in relation to planning ahead over the coming months and years, what they might do to do that?
Well, I'm one of these persons who's never had a long-term plan. I barely know what I'm going to do next week. And if I haven't got enough to do next week, I find something to do. I really admire the people who can actually sit down and do spreadsheets and stick to spreadsheets and stick to them. But I think it's more about capitalizing on opportunity when it comes your way. And a lot of people miss it. Let's be honest about it, or are too slow in taking it up. There will always be opportunity. As Andy Warhol said, everybody has 15 minutes of fame. Well, everybody in farming gets an opportunity, and it's grabbing that opportunity when it comes and realizing you've got it there. I think a lot of people miss it for that.
Excellent, thank you. So just to finish, is there anything perhaps you'd like to mention about the Addington Fund? You've mentioned some of the ways that you can support the farming community. Is there anything else you'd like to mention for anyone watching this?
Yeah, I mean, as I went through our 5 core aims at the start, but we believe that retirement homes are going to be by far and away our biggest area of expenditure in the next few years, unless we, God forbid, we get another foot and mouth outbreak or something like that. So we are now looking for some serious partners to build a series of retirement homes throughout the country, whereby, and we're looking at like perhaps 8 semis, 4 houses, if you like, 4 semi-detached houses in a quadrant with a communal garden, which we can put retired farmers who want to retire into, or let them out of the subsidised rent, and sort of talk over the garden fence to people of their own experience and their own ilk. And we'd love to do probably 4 of those throughout the country. We're in advanced talks with somebody to do one now. And if that comes off this year, I should be well pleased. We're still very keen on keeping youngsters in the countryside and bringing fresh blood into agriculture. I regularly make my list of top 10 farmers because I'm very, very fortunate in my farming life, in my experiences. I've gone to the best farms throughout England, through Nuffield sometimes, through my crop assurance work. And if I make my list of top 10 farmers, usually 7 of those top 10 farmers are what I class as first generation farmers. And it's because they've been given responsibility very, very early on in life. And that does have a real bearing, on how they see their businesses. And they have to make dramatic, hard decisions quite early on. It's amazing to see the fist of the job they make when they do it. The other thing that changes is, and I've seen this happen with Nuffielders, they've come back and sold all their cows, and made a massive change overnight, literally come back off the plane, and within a month, the cows are gone, or sheep are gone, or something like that, and they've gone into a totally new enterprise. And that, in a way, has the same effect of being a first-generation farmer when they do something like that. So I think it does take a bit of courage to do it at times, but it's a wonderful thing when it happens. The other area I'm very, very keen on helping in Addington is farm workers as well. I think they're a forgotten, unsung brigade, if you like, in farming. I think some farm workers too are grossly underpaid. It always amazes me how a combine can fetch £500,000, and they stick somebody on it, driving it at £12 to £15 an hour. It absolutely beggars belief. And gone are the days where farm workers used to get a house for life. I think farm workers can retire and suddenly find themselves homeless if they're not careful. So I'd like to do a bit more for farm workers as well. And dare I say, and that's not going to be too popular in some areas, I think some Eastern Europeans who come across here, I think they do a sterling job for British agriculture. And I don't think in certain cases we're very good at looking after them when they want to stay here.
Excellent, fantastic answers, Bill. Thanks very much for your time today. I think, yeah, that's all my questions. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention, or are you happy?
The only thing I would say is I think the rural charities in this country do a fantastic job. We've got the 5 national ones which come under Farming Help, which are obviously FCN, Forage Aid, RABI, RSABI, and ourselves. And it's great that we actually cooperate together, and we've got our own niche areas. But there's a plethora of rural local charities, some of them which also come under the FCN banner, who do an absolutely remarkable job, and they're very, very sustainable. Lincolnshire Rural Support, Cornwall, Yorkshire, Yarna, those type of organisations. And agriculture is very, very lucky, and rural communities are very, very lucky that they've got such fantastic charities working for them, fighting for them, and helping for them, I think.